A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13. I'm Ritwika Gupta and you're watching our budget special episode. Now this year, Union Budget 2026 comes at a time of prolonged global uncertainty, making it less about headline numbers and more about hard choices. From legacy sectors to millions of MSMEs, does this budget genuinely strengthen the economy? To decode this, on the show today, we are first joined by Arundhati Bhattacharya, President and CEO Salesforce South Asia, and Ronnie Screwvala, co-founder upGrad and Swades Foundation. In the second segment, we are in conversation with Vinod Kumar Wuthoo, President India SME Forum, Rajan Navani, Chairman CII India Council, and Piyush Doshi, Operating Partner, the Foundation for Economic Development. Arundhati, Ronnie, welcome to ET Now Leaders of Tomorrow. So let me start by asking you both a common question. What is that one budget headline that really stood out to you for this year? Let's start with you, Ronnie.
I think clear message of long-term planning, sustained growth, knowledge economy, and that quick fixes and jugaad is out. I think that would be pretty much the loud and clear message. Very much clear about long-term thinking for India, sustained growth. I think the approach to looking at all the way up to 2030 and then to 2047. First time I'm hearing things that have a 2047 ring to it. And I think from that point of view, it stood out as the headline.
Sure. Arundhati?
Well, I would say that this budget really looks at, filling in the gaps in very many initiatives, which have been announced but haven't really got off the ground on account of various things that we've been all talking about and trying to actually fix them. And as Ronnie said regarding the 2047 announcements, and that's to do with data centers. And these are all long-term plays. These are investments that will come in for the longer term.
Sure.
And unless you can provide a roadmap for them, which is long-term as well, they're very unlikely to step in. So that thinking of how to actually operationalize the right kind of initiatives so as to be in the new economy, so to speak, the orange economy, as they called it, that I think that thinking is very, very clear.
Right.
The thinking has a new ring to it, new tone to it. And I'm quite appreciative of the fact that they are thinking in this way.
So, Ronnie, I want to start with education. This year's budget has proposed a high-powered education to employment standing committee focusing on services, emerging technologies like AI and sector-specific talent needs, along with 5 proposed university townships. Do you think this will finally address the structural gap between education and employability?
I think it's not going to completely address it, but I think we're in the right direction. I particularly like the Education to Employment Committee. In fact, I'd like to volunteer for it, and anyone takes me seriously, because I think that's what's needed. The only thing I would caution here is there's this incredible sense of entitlement in the workforce today that if you are skilled and if you are educated, somebody owes you a job. And I think that's going to be the challenge. I also see a very good practical way in which the finance minister has addressed the fact that self-employment is definitely going to be the need of the hour. And they pushed it more with women's self-employment. But overall, the mantra of self-employment combined with education to employment, I think is a very, very strong one. Outside of the fact that giving SMEs as a championship, like creating the mitras for SMEs, that again is an ecosystem that talks about being able to look at self-employment as options for job. So I think on the education part, strong announcement on 5 cities for universities. I hope that's more the Indian universities that we're being able to promote, because I think that's where it'll go. But it's a work in progress.
And Ronnie, I think I particularly like the fact that it's a standing committee. It's not one of those committees that disappear after giving their recommendations. So, it'll be a committee that will keep evolving along with the evolving needs.
Coming to you, Ms. Arundhati, with the budget proposing a high-level committee to comprehensively review the banking sector under the Viksit Bharat agenda, what should the sector take away from this? Do you think these reforms can make the system faster and more decisive in supporting India's next phase of growth?
I think, the realization is very clear that our financial sector does need to evolve quite a bit in order to be in the top 10. And if we are looking at becoming the number 3 economy in the world and merging more with the global supply chains, then our banking also needs to evolve hugely. At this point of time, I think, there is a lot that we can do. We have done quite a bit, in the payment space and things like that, but not enough in the overall way that we do banking. Banking itself is shifting given the fact that, earlier it was all based on deposits, and now it is not so anymore because there are many more competitors for those deposits. And therefore, you have to look to the markets. And I don't think our banks have evolved enough to come up with new ideas, with the new kind of instruments that they need in order to be able to provide themselves with the resources.
So, Ronnie, bringing you in here, just building on the earlier thought shared by Arundhati, this budget acknowledges the orange economy, animation, VFX and gaming, and the creation of AVCG content labs across the country. Do you see this as a significant push to build a global creative tech industry?
No, I think it's very important. Look, I think my sense of being a Viksit Bharat here, outside of many other challenges that we'll have, is that we need to be a sporting nation outside of cricket. We need to be in the Olympics and winning a lot of gold medals, number one. So there's a long-term proclamation here for sports. And I think we need to be a soft power. And I think, therefore, creativity, intellectual property. And I think the mantra is, therefore, move out of arbitrage, cost arbitrage, into IP creation, and that respect for that. So I think in the orange economy, to give a bolster, and, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million jobs, very capable and very high value jobs, because creativity, special effects, animation, if you look at that, design, which is a very strong focus, and design doesn't just mean fashion. These are all what I would call good high value jobs. So that focus is a very strong one, both sides, and the soft power part as well as the other one.
Which brings me to the next point and my question for Arundhati. The budget has announced a 10,000 crore SME growth fund to scale high potential companies, along with initiatives like She-Marts to support women entrepreneurs. How effective do you think these measures can really help small businesses and women-led enterprises to scale in India?
Actually, SMEs for a long time have really been a very strong backbone for India. Jobs are getting created more in that segment than in the organized large industry segment, where things have become, computerized, mechanized, automated, and creation of jobs is more in those SMEs.
Sure.
And to that extent, if you look at our SMEs, that's where our youth will start. So to that extent, empowering the SME sector is something that's, I think, very, very important. We also need to ensure that we are empowering the SMEs in the right way. In fact, this idea of these compliance mitras is a great idea, because that's where the SMEs actually fall apart. They all have great ideas. The government is now helping them with capital, but what they don't really have is governance. And to enable them to have that governance, because without governance, they will not scale. They will not scale beyond a particular point.
Absolutely. Let me come to you on a similar point, Ronnie. What's your assessment of the SME Growth Fund? There was a relatively muted focus on startups this time, but the budget has lifted the 10 lakh cap on courier exports, to ease global market access. Is this really going to help?
Startups need to start up on their own. I think this whole concept of being a support system, there's a little bit of whining and moaning about challenges of doing business in India. I think entrepreneurs are supposed to go past that. And I think from that perspective, less said, less restrictions and more push, I think, is where it needs to be. I think there's a fair bit here.
Now, finally, I have a common question for the both of you as closing remarks. The theme for our show this season is Agility, Ambition, Ascent, set against the backdrop of global uncertainty. In an era of macroeconomic challenges, does this budget framework actively forces scale and competitiveness? Let me come to you first, Arundhati. There is an intent to strengthen India's AI capabilities, opening up global markets. Does this budget prepare India for the next decade of growth?
So I would have liked a little more, I would say a little more clarity on how they were going to go about it. They have talked about data centers. They have talked about giving it tax holidays till 2047. But having said that, even today, because I come from a company that is cloud native, and we are trying to see who all are using cloud and who all can use it. Today, with the kind of evolution that technology is going through, you really need to be able to understand where AI can take you. And in order to do that, you need the kind of compute and storage facilities that would be very difficult to do on on-prem systems and stuff like that. while, the government is giving the signal that it's okay to be in the cloud, it's okay to, get the data centers in India to be able to not only provide for Indian customers, but also to provide for global customers. But I think in actual fact, on the ground initiatives, in order to push all of these, I think I would have really preferred a little more clarity and direction to the industry at large to say that we need to be able to adopt all of this. We need to be able to make the best of it.
Similar question to you, Ronnie. Do you think this budget framework sends the right signal to businesses and founders and startups to invest and build in India?
I think unpredictability is here to stay. I don't think a union budget can address that kind of unpredictability that's happening in the overall. It's a lot to do with foreign policy. It's a lot to do with how you look at your foreign exchange, how you look at many other things.
Sure.
So I would say the budget is supposed to be one which puts the constraint and gives it a growth phenomenon, which I think it has done. I agree with Mr. Bhattacharya that I think some more articulation could have happened. But again, I think we set too much expectation because it's a myriad of things.
Right.
But I do believe in the last 6 months, through all this trepidation and all this, what I would call global uncertainty, I think we've stood our ground in many ways and in a strong way. So I think we had a strong statement. We've signed more FTAs now in the last 1 year than we have in the last 15 and 20 years. So that motion is a cumulative one.
Well, thank you so much, Ronnie and Arundhati, for your time today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13. In this segment, we examine how this budget plays out for MSMEs and entrepreneurs across sectors, especially at a time when global headwinds may persist. Listen in to the panel discussion. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Vinod, Piyush and Rajan. So I want to start with a broad question for each one of you. Now, every budget promises to empower MSMEs, and this year the Finance Minister has gone a step further, identifying the creation of Champion MSMEs as a key strategic priority. A 10,000 crore SME growth fund has been introduced. The Self-Reliant India Fund will get a 2,000 crore top-up. But the real question is, will this actually ease the pressure points for MSMEs, or are we still recycling familiar assurances? Let's start with you, Vinod.
Well, the budget 2026 is presented by the Honorable Finance Minister. Should be understood not as a standalone policy statement, but as a chapter in India's long-term growth narrative. For entrepreneurs which are aligned with sunrise sectors, formal supply chains and global markets, this budget definitely offers a credible, though a very patient roadmap. It does not promise acceleration. It promises a direction.
Piyush?
The announcements that are made in a budget, including this budget, is what we can call the icing on the cake. The real cake actually is cooked throughout the year. I think similar to kind of what Vinod was suggesting, his way of putting it was different. So the real challenges of MSMEs are frankly around the regulation. And throughout the year, we have seen a large number of measures to ease the regulatory pain points of the MSMEs. What is unique and new in this budget is the Champion MSME scheme. It can, for once, reward our winners. So it basically creates an incentive. Companies will be given incentive for achieving certain target. It could be in terms of growth or exports. And once they do well, they get more. If implemented well, it could be a game changer.
Rajan, same question to you.
For me, what stands out for the MSMEs is, of course, the word, champion MSMEs, but more importantly, the SME Growth Fund, as an equity partner. So I think what the government is saying, here we are with you as an equity partner, building and ensuring that MSMEs succeed and willing to deploy more capital. And I'm sure this is just the beginning. Another big area that I feel which kind of aligns with MSMEs is the entire push that this budget has given, to the creator economy. We heard of the orange economy, which is actually bringing, what we thought of soft power into an economic model. Now, the idea was how it gets executed and how can we continue to grow on this in our long journey to 2047 to build and Viksit Bharat. So truly excited about this announcement that has come up in the budget.
Sure. Vinod, coming to you first, the budget tightens the trade finance chain. The government plans to link the government e-marketplace with the trade receivables discounting system for information sharing. Will this actually fix the chronic cash flow problem?
Linking GEM with TReDS fixes a major friction point for micro, small, medium enterprises. Now, if you look at what's going to happen, data of government purchase, which is like orders, delivery, acceptance, etc., through the GEM will automatically flow into TReDS. Financiers will be able to see verified real-time data. You've also made TReDS mandatory so that every CPSE or PSU must now settle MSME invoices only via TReDS and no off-platform payments. So when an MSME supplies goods or services to CPSE, the invoice will get uploaded on TReDS. The CPSE will accept the invoice digitally, and MSME will either get paid via discounting immediately or wait for a due date. Now, this implies that CPSEs will now become anchor buyers from MSME suppliers. Financiers will definitely now see lower risk. They'll bid more aggressively. They'll offer lower or discounted rates. And also finance the same micro or small enterprises that they earlier avoided because they had lower ratings. So what I feel is while MSME borrowing cost drops, more invoices are going to become financeable. With the GEM linkage, invoices will automatically be authenticated. So you'll have faster approvals and definitely cheaper financing.
Sure. Piyush, coming to you, the budget has removed the 10 lakh value cap on courier exports to help businesses, especially e-commerce businesses, artisans and startups to access global markets. Do you think this will genuinely open international opportunities for smaller players?
I think it is a very significant relaxation. When we think about the challenges MSMEs face in winning, their two biggest challenges are access to capital and access to market. For MSMEs to reach these global markets, the best way for them is to send their goods through courier routes. They can send in small parcels or consignments, not full container loads. Removing this cap of 10 lakh will unlock this opportunity for, let's say, medium-sized consignments. And those consignments can really scale up our e-commerce exports. So if we want our MSMEs to access global markets, if we want our MSMEs to succeed in the export market, we need to make sure that any impediment on the path of e-commerce export is removed.
So moving to sector-specific deep dives, Rajan, coming to you, the budget allocates 10,000 crores over 5 years to Biopharma Shakti, aiming to position India as a global hub for biopharma manufacturing and boost high-value production capabilities. Is this enough to turn India into a high-value pharma production powerhouse?
You use the word, Biopharma Shakti, right? I think this is a catalytic kind of indication of what are the priorities for India so that industry and others can invest. The Shakti comes from collaboration. And I think, what the government is doing through the budget is giving direction to say, listen, we will follow up on this because this is a great area. If we can achieve global standards in terms of quality, there's nothing that stops us. So to me, I really view this as an announcement of a prioritized area.
Vinod, coming back to you, the budget also proposed creating modular courses to train corporate mitras who will help MSMEs with regulatory compliance. What's your initial read? Will this ease the compliance burden for small businesses, or is it just adding another layer of red tape without tackling the real challenges?
The idea seems to be overall train a cadre of semi-professional helpers, or so-called, I would say, compliance navigators. But that doesn't mean it'll ease compliance for MSMEs, because it is like the reform treats the symptoms, not the disease. We unfortunately see an impending risk of creating new intermediary layers. And unless designed carefully, they may again become compliance brokers or form filers or rent seekers, an additional layer of confusion to what the MSME is already dealing with. Now, the big question is who certifies them? Who is liable for mistakes? What happens if the advice goes wrong? And the most important thing is the liability remains with the MSME. The mitra becomes a low-risk, high influence actor. You need to have parallel compliance pruning, which is like sunset clauses on old filings, single returns instead of multiple returns, one-time data submission across portals. So a lot of the taste of the pie will be in eating it and not just offering it in the first place.
Yes, I agree, because having layers of mediation, that's exactly where stress shows for small businesses. Now, the semiconductor mission was also in focus in the budget. Piyush, coming to you, the budget has increased the India Semiconductor Mission 2.0 outlay to 40,000 crore, focusing on industry-led research and training centers. Will this be enough to build India's domestic semiconductor capabilities at scale?
Yeah, I see our efforts around semiconductor, by and large, very well-meaning, but I also feel that government can only play a limited role in this. The amount of investment needed, the amount of effort needed to build a robust semiconductor ecosystem is far beyond the capability of any government. 40,000 crore is actually not enough to build a competitive semiconductor industry. If we believe that we can try and catch this bus today, unfortunately, this bus has not only left the platform, it has already actually reached 2 platforms ahead. So the leap that is needed to catch it now is much bigger than what 40,000 crore can achieve. But let's wait how it is used, both in terms of theory as well as practice, and if it can actually unlock and excite private investment, which can be the real and only game changer.
Well, I agree. Fair point. The ambition clearly outweighs allocation right now. Bringing you in here, Rajan, talking about the textile sector. Now, the budget expands textile and handloom initiatives through mega textile parks and schemes like the natural fiber and textile expansion programs. The idea is to also boost employment in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Do you think these measures can truly modernize and empower the sector?
I think, mega textile parks can really improve scale, also compliance with export readiness, right? And especially when you think of it in the context of MSMEs. So for a country like India to be able to create large scale employment, look at traditional handloom sectors, that have defined what India can give to the world and somewhere lost it to many other countries. This is a great opportunity for us to bring that back. I believe that if executed well, this can really modernize the sector and at the same time, create large-scale employment.
All right, and as we are wrapping up this discussion, my final question to all three of you, and it's a common question. If global headwinds persist for the next 3 to 5 years, would this budget still hold up as a credible growth blueprint for entrepreneurs? Let's start with you, Rajan, this time.
No, I absolutely think, as a matter of fact, as I mentioned, right, most budgets look at it from a year's perspective. Of course, you have to balance that and that held good. But this budget is clearly a long-term 2047 directional thinking budget with all the announcements, that have come, because there has to be long-term, resilience built into a country like India. I think from all angles, it's very, very clear that this is a budget that will survive headwinds, especially at times like this, when there is so much of it around the world. And India is keeping itself agile. And I saw a lot of that, direction in this budget. So, yeah, I am confident about that.
Piyush?
Ritwika, as they say, you should never waste a good crisis. The global headwinds have given us a crisis, which we should convert into an opportunity, which actually government is doing through a lot of reforms, which are actually happening outside the budget. But as far as this budget is concerned, I would call it a Rahul Dravid budget, using a cricket analogy, rather than a Sachin Tendulkar budget. So I think there are lots of small measures which can collectively boost our economy, when particularly added with other reform measures which are happening outside the budget.
Well, that's a great comparison. Vinod, I'll let you have the last word.
You see, we are talking about the backdrop of persistent global headwinds. Now, does this budget work like a stimulus? No. It is more of a long-term growth blueprint. It consciously shifts from subsidies to systems, strengthening payments, capital markets, exports, compliance ecosystems, rather than chasing short-term demand. I don't think it will accelerate growth overnight, but it will meaningfully improve the odds of survival, scale, and competitiveness over the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us here on ET Now Leaders of Tomorrow. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13. We hope you enjoyed our special budget edition. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.